Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this webinar discussion around defining safe and sustainable by design. In today's webinar, we'll go through a number of topics, starting with the concept of safe and sustainable by design. Then we will discuss existing approaches to developing safe and sustainable by design criteria. And finally, we will share key insights from the Horizon 2020 Sunshine project, which is looking at safe and sustainable by design of advanced multi-component nanomaterials. Before we move on, let me introduce to you the presenter today. It is my pleasure to welcome our guest speaker, Dr. Lucian Farcal. He is a project officer at the European Commission Joint Research Center in Ispra, Italy, and currently involved in several projects related to nano-governance and safety and sustainability of advanced materials. And myself, the host of this webinar, I'm Stella Stojceva, and I'm leading the Sustainability Division at Jordas Group. So let's start with the EU Chemical Strategy for Sustainability, which is part of the EU Zero Pollution ambition under the European Green Deal. As the global chemical use is increasing, it is driving the urgency to act and improve the chemical regulations. The EU is already committed to certain sustainability goals and actions under international conventions. The recent strategy prioritizes innovation for safe and sustainable chemicals with human and environmental health as top priority. As a way to implement the strategy, there will be also new legislative initiatives introduced, including changes to REACH and COP. The strategy was first published on 14th of October 2020, and there are several priority actions to be implemented between 2020 and 2024. So everything is already in motion. So in a nutshell, as explained at the opening remarks for the launch of the strategy, according to it, the EU intends to move away from an approach to chemical regulation that depends primarily on tracking down substances that are hazardous after they've already been used in products. They will rather focus on prohibiting their use in the first place. So one of the key topics of the strategy is the Commission aim to create a comprehensive chemicals knowledge base for a sound management of chemicals in Europe. In this context, the concept of safe by design will be a major topic. But what does it mean to be safe and sustainable by design, and how we define it?
Hello, and thank you for the invitation to present this today, and also for the introduction to the topic, which is a challenging, let's say, topic. But we'll try today to discuss some of these aspects and also put some context of the topic that we are going to discuss. So, as you know, under the umbrella of European Green Deal, as was also mentioned before, there are several actions that were launched in the last period, including the European Industrial Strategy, the Circular Economy Action Plan, the Farm to Fork Strategy, the Chemical Strategy for Sustainability, and more recently in May this year was this Zero Pollution Action Plan. Today, we'll indeed refer mainly to the Chemical Strategy for Sustainability and its sub-action, the Safe and Sustainable by Design, for which we try to extract some, let's say, definitions, or that will show in the next slide. And then in this context, we'll give the example of Sunshine project that we'll refer later in our presentation. So next slide. So of course, it's far from our intention to cover all the details of these concepts, but just to give a general introduction to them and break down a bit these terms and concepts that were defined in other projects. So first, let's refer to safe by design from this safe and sustainable by design approach. So for this, I'm referring here to one of the OECD projects, call it Safer Innovation Approach, which in this context, OECD published last year a document where I really highly recommend to look at this document. So safe by design concept refer to identify risks and for concerning humans and environment in an early phase of the innovation process. So in this context, we are referring to environmental, health, and safety, but also the safe by design concepts address the safety of the chemicals, materials, and products within the whole life cycle. So we have safety in one side and the life cycle in the other side. If we go to the next slide. So then if we talk about sustainable by design, this is an approach to integrate safety, circularity, and functionality of products and processes through the whole life cycle, from the design to the end of their life. And sustainable design approach that we just mentioned represents one of the key elements of the EU chemical strategy for sustainability. Go to the next slide, please. So if we put them together, so safe and sustainable by design, in the chemical strategy for sustainability document, we'll find the current working definition that indeed refers to a pre-market approach. So before this chemical or a material, it is on the market, and integrate all these elements of safety. If we are talking about environmental health and safety and sustainability, environmental footprint, resources use, and so on, from a life cycle perspective. So all these three elements or dimensions, safety, sustainability, and life cycle, are integrated.
Okay, we have understood what safe and sustainable by design means, but how we do implement it in practice? What are the approaches available towards operationalizing safe and sustainable by design?
So these elements that I mentioned before need, of course, to be integrated, while criteria need to be developed in a way that several dimensions are combined. So these dimensions, like criteria, as for example, are shown in this paper that I'm showing in this slide, that focus on a specific type of advanced materials, call it smart nanomaterials, needs to consider several aspects: regulatory, industrial, research, innovation, but also economical and social aspects. Next slide. So what is the process to develop such criteria, which needs to consider existing frameworks, so frameworks that already discussed this criteria or dimensions. And for this, European Commission's RTD study collected already, that it's shown in this slide, collected already several of these frameworks and initiatives. Then this requires the definition, identification of so-called dimensions. And I already mentioned before dimensions like safety, environmental, social, and economical. Then the third step is to create indicators or to identify indicators of safety and sustainability, and of course methods on how to measure these indicators. Of course, for the safety part or for the safety dimension, these are well established, including into existing regulations. However, for the sustainability part, there are several elements that still to be developed and implemented in the next period. Then the criteria, for example, when a chemical or a material or a product is considered sustainable, are established in parallel with the procedures to evaluate these chemicals or materials based on this criteria. So this is, in brief, the process that it is followed in this context.
Okay, so we have seen that this is quite a complex process, and we know that there are a number of developments and a number of initiatives and programs that aim to address it. The Horizon 2020 project Sunshine is one of the key European projects that have the ambitious agenda to develop and implement simple, robust, and cost-effective, safe, and sustainable by design strategy for materials and products which incorporate advanced multi-component nanomaterials. Can you tell us a bit more about the Sunshine project?
Sure. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, Horizon 2020 Sunshine, it's a project funded under the topic of the same by design, from science to regulation, started at the beginning of 2021, and refers exactly to these aspects that we have defined above, that the project focus on a category of advanced materials named multi-component nanomaterials. So as you already mentioned, the main goal of the project is to develop safe and sustainable design strategies for this type of components. In this context, the project will, of course, generate knowledge on these topics, but also ways to do that, and also examples through the case studies. We go to the next slide. So here I will mention that we are following in this project. It's a two-way approach. Sunshine, of course, will follow the developments of the European Commission on all what have been discussed before, like on the EU chemical strategy for sustainability, but also Sunshine is active stakeholders in this process, so will help with its scientific knowledge in the developments of the strategies and implementation of these criteria. And so in Sunshine, if you look at the scheme in the right side, the strategy, we are looking at different elements. We are trying to integrate all these elements. Already mentioned the EU policy, the additional funding programs that are working on the same topic, other strategies and criteria that exist, so other frameworks, tools and approaches developed by within other projects or other initiatives. We are looking very closely to industry. In Sunshine, there are several industrial partners that will develop different case studies. And also, we are collecting all the knowledge that exists, or we are looking at the knowledge that exists from other EU national and international initiatives. So we're trying to exploit and take advantage of this knowledge that exists and develop the so-called safe by design strategy of the Sunshine, which focus on these multi-component nanomaterials. So these strategies, in order to develop these strategies, Sunshine will run several case studies on different type of materials, like additives or food contact materials and so on, which are all considered these nanomaterials that are considered multi-component nanomaterials. The case studies look through the life cycle of these products, and then at the end, some guidelines and practical applications of this safe and sustainable by design strategies will be released. For this, the process will include developing experimental methods and modeling approaches. We'll use grouping and read across approaches to integrate the existing information. This will be supported by the infrastructure. And then at the end, as already mentioned, we will, with these developments, Sunshine aims to contribute to the EU policy ambitions on this direction. So to summarize, where is Sunshine placed in this context? So as I mentioned, we have the umbrella of the Green Deal with the actions on the zero pollution and the ambition of a toxic-free environment, and the action on the EU chemical strategy for sustainability, which one of the sub-actions refers to the safe and sustainable chemicals. And Sunshine comes exactly in this part with a focus on the advanced materials and the multi-component nanomaterials. So with this, I hope we offer the first and clear picture of the ongoing activities in this area, and we'll be able to follow up with some specific case studies that are currently developed in the project that address these materials. And I really thank you for the attention.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Lucian.